Weird and wacky world that is F1. This is your latest news and updates, for there are very many F1 centric threads at which we need to pull. Got to talk about Jacques Villeneuve and Colapinto because it's all kicking off F1 toxicity if ever you've seen it. So too, we need to talk about the legend that is Will Buxton, set to go across to IndyCar commentary. Oh, the humanity. And so too, we need to talk about Jacques Villeneuve, one-time champion, 1997 settings, opening up his mouth again and putting on display for everyone in the F1 community to see his very unique brand of F1 commentary. Oh, the humanity. Go on, and let's talk about Will Buxton first, because he's moved across to the dark side, IndyCar settings. But the question for many F1 fans all around the world is, what does this mean for us? Will Buxton no longer be commentating on F1? Is he no longer an F1 analyst? Well, we haven't yet got official confirmation, but what we do know is they'll be joining a three-man booth as of next year with IndyCar Series NTT Fox Sports settings. It will be Will Buxton, James Hinchcliffe and Townsend Bell. Oh, the humanity. But what does this mean for F1? I think F1 is a better space for having a character / personality like Will Buxton in and around it. Indeed, you would argue that F1 needs more colourful personalities, that it's been too bland, singular, linear even for far too long. Although saying that, probably important for me to say this, Will Buxton has done this before in the past. He's combined both, hasn't he? Many cycles ago, he was employed by Speed, and during that time on NBC Sports, he commentated for both F1 and IndyCar. Therefore, if past his prologue, Will Buxton will do both going forward. Oh, the humanity. Let's talk about Franco Colapinto and Jacques Villeneuve, because you guys will know by now that Jacques Villeneuve has signed to anywhere between a 5 and 6 race contract for 2025 for Alpine. This, therefore, means pressure, as if F1 as a piranha's tank sporting endeavour wasn't pressurised enough. Jacques Villeneuve, in a 24 race calendar, is only contracted for 4 or 5 depending on who you listen to. Bloody Nora, you wouldn't want that for your worst enemy, eh? Jacques Villeneuve rookie settings now has no contractual security, and then overlay that with this. The fact that Franco Colapinto, the Argentine, the man who looks just like Ayrton Senna, has now been signed on a 5-year deal with Alpine. This by dint of Fabio Briatore gangster F1 settings, saying that if there is a quick driver, he will always be in the market for them. That's Fabio's words, not mine. So why then does Colapinto get the 5-year contract and Jacques Villeneuve only gets one for 5 races? I would imagine that means that their priorities are shifting in real time. This is probation period settings for Jacques Villeneuve. If he fails to perform within those first 5 races in 2-5, then it will be problems for him, because Fabio Briatore, executive advisor of Alpine, set to increase the asset value of Alpine with a view to sell at some point within the next 3 or 4 years, won't hesitate to pull the trigger on sacking one Jacques Villeneuve, replacing indeed one Franco Colapinto, because of all the charisma that dude comes with. Because fairly soon, you might imagine, he will come with the $20 million in sponsorship by dint of one Carlos Slim. The Franco Colapinto is a whirling dervish full of potential and spit and furore. No, it's going to get techie next season, I'm telling you, and I can't wait. But some would argue that it's unfair to treat a rookie in Jacques Villeneuve this way, and I would concur. Let me tell you about Jacques Villeneuve, because he's come out and said some more things. Jacques Villeneuve at this point seems like he's making an industry out of being F1 outspoken PLC. You'll recall last year when he spoke about Danny Rick, he said, what is he even still doing at F1? How is he even still an F1 driver? Saying what so many millions of F1 fans had been thinking out loud. And we need that as a community, right? It can't all be straight-laced and buttoned up PC settings. No, sometimes you need a Jacques Villeneuve or a Nico Rosberg, both of whom have length of service, tenure and expertise, championship winners both, to come out and shoot straight, notwithstanding downside ramifications as far as consequences of a material nature. However, now Jacques Villeneuve has come out and said something, in the first instance talking about Liam Lawson, and then the second instance talking about Max Verstappen as versus Lewis Hamilton. Here's what he had to say. Firstly, about Lawson, he told the Action Network, "We'll see how mentally strong Liam Lawson is and how good he really is, because we don't know just yet." I mean, you cannot take his F2 season, his Japanese season, or his races against Yuki Tsunoda as a benchmark. Jacques Villeneuve, one-time champion, continues. Contractually, Liam Lawson is there to help Verstappen, but in his own head, he's not. In his head, he's there to replace Max, so he will try to be tough and quick. Well, no kidding, Sherlock, to a certain extent. What else is Liam Lawson there? Now, that will cause ramification if indeed that's true. But, I mean, come on. Low-hanging fruit settings, any. But I digress. Here's the next thing. The final topic on the docket this Tuesday afternoon. Talking about Fabio Briatore's comments that signing Lewis Hamilton by Scuderia Ferrari was a mistake. Here's what he had to say about that. He said that's very short-sighted from Fabio Briatore, suggesting that he can't see the logic of signing Lewis Hamilton at Ferrari. You just have to look at the value of Ferrari the minute they've signed him, and I would concur, Jacques Villeneuve, although there is minutiae to that very, very unique brand of reason, is there not? And by that, I mean this. On the day when Lewis Hamilton was announced, of course, that news broke levels in terms of the share price. Of course it did. Of course it did. The share price of Ferrari Scuderia did one of these, but not just because of Sir Lewis. It was the fact that they just released quarterly results, and the forecast attached to those were better than market estimates. Twofold leverages as far as causation. Oh, and by the way, Jacques Villeneuve continues. You can't look at Ferrari as just the racing teams. It's a whole industry. Yes, they are there to win, but winning helps them sell more cars and adds value to Ferrari. Well, true also, Jacques, but I would see that and raise you this. It's Ferrari that told us their strategic objective was to not just be a sports car brand, but to be a luxury brand. And if anything, if there were a driver on the grid that could help them get to that milestone, then that driver has a name, and his name is Sir Lewis Hamilton. Jacques Villeneuve continues. That's what the business is, and signing Lewis was worth millions and millions, so it was the best move that they've ever done. Jacques Villeneuve continues. Lewis moving to Ferrari is the most high-profile F1 move since Michael Schumacher left Benetton for Ferrari. Independent of race results, Lewis Hamilton is the biggest driver of all time because of all the following he has. You can make that argument. I don't disagree with him. As far as mainstream crossover superstardom, who else is there but for Lewis Hamilton? He's done it in a way different to most others. Maybe all others. Michael Schumacher, potentially, you could argue, is the first mainstream crossover superstar. But I don't know, you'd be disingenuous to acknowledge that stanza there from Jacques Villeneuve. However, Jacques Villeneuve continues. Take Verstappen to make his point, right? Of course. Take Verstappen out of F1, nobody cares. Take Hamilton out of F1, people care. So yes, it is the biggest signing. What's he on about, chat? Go on. Am I missing something here? Is Jacques Villeneuve just being polemic and controversial for being polemic and controversial's sake? Take Verstappen out of F1 and nobody cares? Nah. What? What is he talking about here? This is nonsense F1 baloney from a sporting endeavour standpoint. Nobody would care. What are you talking about, Jacques Villeneuve? This is nonsense. Surely he's just being an unreliable narrator deliberately now Nobody would care if Verstappen, 4, some say soon to be 5-time champion, were to come out of F1. No, I know, this is ridiculous now. This is ridiculous. Not if you're invested in sporting excellence, you wouldn't. What's he talking about here, Jacques? Sometimes I do think that Jacques just being deliberately antagonistic for being deliberately antagonistic's sake. That's nonsense. Take Verstappen out of F1 and nobody would care. I tell you who would care. For FOM would care, because they realise that they've got a champion against whom everybody is trying to rub shoulders. Lando, Sir Lewis, Charles Leclerc, everybody's taking aim at Max Verstappen. And therein lies your story arc now. One of your most notable reasons, most material reasons to watch going into 2025. Who, if anybody, can beat Maximilian Verstappen? For some say soon to be 5-time world champion. So I see you that, Jacques Villeneuve, and I will raise you this, chap. If you took out Max Verstappen, here's one guy that potentially wouldn't be watching, at least not with the same fervour and vigour as he were before. For Max Verstappen, he's the apex predator in F1 as at 2025. Jacques Villeneuve, mate, what are you doing? What are you talking about here? This makes no sense, but again, maybe it's me being naive, drinking indeed from the fountain of naivete to expect anything other than controversy for controversy's sake out the mouth of one-time champion in Jacques Villeneuve. Ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, what are we doing here?